Welcome to A Time for Change. I'm Kristen Myers, here with our new co-host, Alexis Christoforous, and of course, Sibile Marcellus. Thank you all for joining us today. Now, it's been nearly a year since we started this show in response to the death of George Floyd. Now, along with the rest of the world, we are waiting for the decision of the jury in the trial of Derek Chauvin, the former Minneapolis police officer charged in his death.
That's right, Kristen. The jury has a lot on their shoulders. They began deliberating towards the end of the day yesterday after 6 hours of closing arguments from both the prosecution and the defense.
Yeah, and for the next half hour, we're going to focus here on the case, what the potential jury verdicts will mean for all of us. But first, we want to take a look back at the day George Floyd died and what has happened since. Please be warned that the video you're about to see does contain violent and upsetting images.
I can't breathe. I can't breathe. I'm about to die this day. Relax. I can't breathe my face. Just get up.
Mr. Derek Chauvin betrayed this badge when he used excessive and unreasonable force upon the body of Mr. George Floyd.
Derek Chauvin did exactly what he had been trained to do over the course of his 19-year career.
George, he would always be up on our mom. He was a big mama's boy.
I believe that Mr. George Floyd's death was absolutely preventable.
How would you classify the manner of death?
I would fall back to undetermined.
Officer Chauvin's interactions with Mr. Floyd were following his training, following current practices in policing, and were objectively reasonable.
I will invoke my Fifth Amendment privilege today.
This case is exactly what you thought when you saw it first. When you saw that video, it is exactly that. You can believe your eyes. This wasn't policing. This was murder.
The state has failed to prove its case beyond a reasonable doubt. And therefore, Mr. Chauvin should be found not guilty of all counts.
And that video is a powerful and painful reminder of what has brought us to this point. Joining us now is Debbie Hines. She's a trial lawyer and former Maryland Assistant Attorney General. Debbie, you just watched that video. Are you surprised that the jury is still out? And how long is it going to take to get a verdict?
So let me start with the last question first. no one knows how long it's going to take for the jury to come back. That's first of all. And every jury is different. And even though there are a lot of people on TV saying that, oh, if it's a, quick verdict, it means it's a verdict for the prosecution. If it takes a really long time, then it's a verdict for the defense. And there really isn't any rhyme or reason. I understand what my fellow colleagues are saying, but there really isn't any rhyme or reason to it. Because in the real world, it's not as simple as what we all think, which is, what would take them so long to find Derek Chauvin guilty of murder? And what they have to go through is they have to go through 3 different crimes and each and every element of the crime. So they're not just answering a question that says, was he guilty of murder? Of course, that might be, take a very short period of time. But what they're being asked is to determine between second-degree murder and just quickly second-degree murder. They have to prove that, of course, he caused a death. That's true for all the 3 counts. But they have to prove that he committed a felony, an assault in the 3rd degree. That's what distinguishes second-degree murder. So just on that legal jargon, they can have some issues. On 3rd degree, it's a little different. They just have to show that he had disregard for human life. It's called a depraved heart, that he had disregard, his actions had any disregard for human life. That's a little easier. And then there's the 3rd charge, which is manslaughter, which is just showing simple negligence. But at the end of the day, 12 people have to come to the same decision for it to be a unanimous verdict on all 3 of the charges. And if you've ever tried to get, even 3 friends to decide on what restaurant or movie you want to go to, that can take some time. And this is obviously much, much more serious than that. So I don't really buy into if the jury doesn't come back. Even today, I actually thought that the jury might take several days to make a decision.
Debbie, we just heard in that video the defense for Derek Chauvin saying that he did exactly what he had been trained to do. And anytime we talk about cases like this one, we often say that, frankly, the justice system is working exactly as intended, which means that there is not equal justice for everyone under the law. How much could this trial be a watershed moment for policing in the United States and even for law in the United States?
I don't know that it's going to be that. I mean, what I mean by that is that it's just the police officer is on trial. And so it speaks volumes as many progressive people, many African Americans, that we know that this is what the police do. They kill Black people. But I don't really know if this is going to actually be any greater change. I hate to say that, or if it's just going to be business as usual. But what I do know is if the jury comes back with a not guilty verdict, God forbid, on all the charges, I think that speaks volumes about where we are in this country. I think those 12 people in that regard speak for where we are in this country. So I'm really hoping that the jury will come back and convict on really the highest charge, because as a former prosecutor, Derek Chauvin really could have been charged with first-degree murder. I mean, there was enough evidence there. I understand why the prosecution in this case did not want to do that, because they really felt that they may not have been able to get a verdict from a jury on that just based on racial bias.
Congresswoman Maxine Waters made headlines recently when she said that if Derek Chauvin is acquitted, then protesters should, quote, get more confrontational. Do you think that might help Derek Chauvin possibly be acquitted on appeal if he's found guilty this time around?
I definitely don't think so. And the reason why is because, when clients ask me, well, can I appeal on this and can I appeal on that? In order for an appeal to be successful, you have to show that what it was that you're claiming was wrong had an impact on the verdict. So at the end of the day, if he's acquitted, the state doesn't have any right to appeal. That's not a right that the state really has. It would be the defense that has the right to appeal if he is convicted. But it's a hard burden because they would have to show that it caused what happened. And there's no way that they're going to probably interview all the jurors that come to that decision, because an appeal is what's on the written word. It's not what you think that's in your head. It's actually what was happening with the jurors, and did that really have a prejudicial effect on Derek Chauvin's verdict.
Well, all eyes are on Minneapolis right now as we await this verdict. And of course, we will bring you that verdict live here on Yahoo Finance when it happens. Debbie Hines, thanks so much.
Thank you.